If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us where in the world you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. Your words inspire us to keep sharing these powerful, emotional journeys. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss tomorrow's story. It's one you won't want to miss. See you in the next chapter. Emily Rivers had never set foot in a mansion like this. The cold marble floors, the silence thick with formality, the towering staircase, it all made her feel small. But not as small as the way Ethan Cole, billionaire, CEO and single father, had looked at her during the interview. 30 seconds, one handshake, and she was hired. No warmth, no welcome. Just instructions. Follow the therapist's schedule. Don't make changes. Don't disturb him while he's working. The house felt more like a corporate office than a home. That first week, Emily followed the rules. She watched little Caleb Cole, 5 years old, quietly align his toy cars into perfect rows on the carpet, while his therapist observed from a distance, silent, clinical, detached. No one spoke to Caleb unless it was about behavior charts or flashcards. No one touched him. No one asked how he felt. The boy hadn't said a single word in over a year, and everyone, doctors, specialists, even his own father, had accepted the diagnosis, classic autism. But Emily saw something different. She saw how Caleb glanced toward her when he thought no one was watching, how his fingers reached out hesitantly when she handed him his favorite toy, how his breathing slowed when she hummed softly while brushing his hair after bath time. It wasn't textbook progress, but it was real. It was human. Then came the day, everything shattered. A therapy session pushed Caleb too far. He screamed, terrified, overwhelmed. The therapist scowled and asked Emily to call Mr. Cole to witness the outburst. Instead, Emily stood up, heart pounding, and said the one thing no one had dared to say. "Sir," she said, her voice firm but trembling, "your son isn't autistic. He just needs love." The room froze. Ethan Cole turned toward her slowly, like a predator catching the scent of defiance. His eyes were cold steel. 36 specialists disagree with you," he said flatly. "You are dismissed. Pack your things." Emily felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. She needed this job. It paid enough to support her younger brother back in Georgia, enough to keep food on the table for her aging grandparents. But in that moment, it wasn't about money. It was about Caleb. She looked over and saw him, curled in the corner, hands pressed to his ears, eyes searching hers. He wasn't broken. He was scared, and she couldn't walk away from that. So she didn't apologize. She didn't beg. She just knelt down beside Caleb, picked up one of the scattered toy cars, and whispered gently, "It's okay, sweet boy. I'm here." What kind of love dares to speak against authority? What kind of courage stands tall in the face of power? The kind that knows the difference between a diagnosis and a child. Emily didn't know what would happen next. After speaking the words that could cost her everything, the room had gone deathly quiet. The therapist stood frozen, gripping her tablet like a weapon. Ethan Cole's jaw clenched, his voice like ice. "You're dismissed," he repeated. "I want you out of this house." Emily stood up slowly, her legs trembling. She couldn't even look at Caleb, afraid her own heartbreak might show on her face. This wasn't how she had imagined her last day. Being fired in front of the child who had just started to trust her. She walked toward the door, every step heavier than the last, her heart splitting in two. Then she heard it. A small voice, fragile, hoarse, barely above a whisper, cut through the silence like a bolt of lightning. "Daddy, don't let Emily go." Emily froze mid-step. So did everyone else. The therapist dropped her tablet. Ethan turned around like he'd just seen a ghost. Caleb, the little boy who hadn't spoken a full sentence in over a year, was standing beside the couch, clinging to his father's pant leg, tears running down his face. "I want Emily to stay," he said again, louder this time. She makes the monsters go away, Emily gasped. For a split second, she forgot how to breathe. The man who built tech empires and silenced boardrooms with a glance now had nothing to say. Ethan knelt slowly beside his son, his expression cracked wide open. What did you just say? He asked, almost afraid the moment would disappear if he blinked. Caleb looked at him, not past him, not through him, but directly into his father's eyes, and said, I want her to stay. The therapist stumbled backward, stunned. Emily couldn't move. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. She wanted to cry, to scream, to laugh, all at once. That moment, that single miracle of 7 words, changed everything. Ethan stood up and faced her. His voice was controlled, but his eyes, they weren't cold anymore. You may stay, he said, for now. But you will follow every directive from the medical team. I want cameras in Caleb's room. I will be watching. Emily nodded, her heart thudding in her chest. She didn't care about the conditions. She just cared that she was staying. As she knelt down to comfort Caleb, his tiny hand wrapped around her wrist. Thank you for defending me, she whispered, brushing a curl from his forehead. You're so brave. And for the first time, Caleb smiled. Not a big one, not perfect, but real. That night, as Emily tucked him into bed, she noticed a tiny red light in the corner of the room, a newly installed camera, just as promised. She looked straight at it and smiled, not to defy, not to provoke, but to say silently and clearly, you saw what I saw. Now let's see what love can do next. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Not warmer, not softer, but changed. As Emily moved through the halls, preparing breakfast and humming quietly to herself, she couldn't ignore the subtle shift. Something had cracked the surface of the Blake estate, something small but undeniable. Caleb had spoken, not just words, but feelings, needs. And Ethan Cole, for all his coldness, had listened, at least enough to let her stay. But the camera in Caleb's room never blinked. Every moment Emily spent with him now was under surveillance. She followed the therapist's routines, used the behavior charts, avoided eye contact when told. But the spark between her and Caleb couldn't be monitored, couldn't be reduced to checkboxes. When the professionals left for the day and the house fell quiet, Emily returned to the only thing that had ever worked: connection. She read silly books in goofy voices, danced barefoot in Caleb's room, and whispered lullabies from Georgia while brushing his curls. And Caleb blossomed. He began humming during bath time, reaching for her hand in the hallway, giggling when she tripped over his toys. He clapped off beat to nursery rhymes, tried mimicking guitar chords, and once fell asleep with his head on her lap. Every little act, every smile, every glance, it was a battle won. But it also made the next decision weigh even heavier on Emily's heart, because in her nightstand drawer was a letter, a formal job offer from a prestigious private preschool in Asheville. $78,000 a year, benefits, stability, a future. It was everything she'd dreamed of after years of scraping by, working 2 jobs to support her younger brother and her grandparents. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to sign it. Every time she looked at Caleb, something pulled her back. The way he laughed now, the way he said "night, night" in a tiny, sleepy voice, the way his arms wrapped around her waist without needing an invitation. She had come here for a job, but now it felt like she belonged to something bigger. Still, she couldn't ignore the reality. Staying meant risk. Ethan had said she could remain for now. That wasn't a promise. It was a leash, and she didn't know how long it would last. Then came the suitcase. Emily had just returned from the laundry room when she noticed something odd. Her small overnight bag, the one she always kept tucked in the back of the closet, was missing. She opened the closet wider and gasped. There, Curled up on the floor was Caleb. His tiny arms were wrapped around the suitcase, his cheeks stained with tears. "Sweetheart," she whispered, kneeling down. "What are you doing here?" "I don't want you to go," he choked out. "I hid your bag. If you can't pack, you won't leave." Emily's heart shattered. She hadn't told him about the job offer, not a word, but somehow he knew. And that's when she realized this wasn't just about a career. This was about a child who had finally found someone safe, and maybe she had too. Ethan Cole stood in the doorway, silent. He had followed the trail of soft footsteps to the nursery, only to find his son huddled on the closet floor, gripping a suitcase like it was a lifeline. The same bag Emily used on weekends, the one she might have packed if she'd decided to leave. His eyes met Emily's, and for once, there were no cold walls, no sharp words, just realization. Something was breaking inside him, and it wasn't just about Caleb. It was about all the years he'd spent shutting people out, all the moments he thought efficiency could replace emotion. But now, in that quiet room, his son had made a choice. And it wasn't him. It was her. For 3 days, Ethan said nothing. Emily stayed, but the house was blanketed in silence. She spent her time with Caleb, teaching him how to pour pancake batter, tracing letters on big, colourful flashcards, and laughing with him in the sunroom as, if the world outside didn't matter, the job offer remained untouched in her drawer. A silent question mark hovering between heart and reason. Then, one morning, Ethan called her into the nursery. "Caleb," he said gently, "can you go find Mrs. Harris for a minute?" The boy hesitated, looked at Emily, then nodded and slipped out the door. Ethan turned, his jaw tight. "I'm leaving tonight," he said flatly. Emily's chest tightened. "You're... what?" "I'll be gone for 2 days. There's something I need to do, for us. I know I haven't explained things well. I don't expect you to wait. I need you not to make a decision until I come back." Before she could respond, he was already walking away. That night, the mansion creaked beneath a soft rain, the sound of water tapping at the windows like old memories asking to come in. Emily lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with questions. What was Ethan doing? Why now? Could she really put her future in the hands of a man who had barely trusted her to begin with? Then, the phone rang. It was her younger brother, Danny. His voice was shaking. I got it. The scholarship. Full ride. Everything." Tears filled her eyes. For years, she'd juggled multiple jobs to keep his dream alive. Now, he didn't need her to sacrifice anymore. She could finally choose. Not out of survival, but from the heart. Later that evening, Margaret Cole, the woman who had never said more than 2 civil words to her, approached in the hallway. "Come," she said briskly. "We need to talk." In the study, Margaret poured 2 glasses of wine, her expression unreadable. "I've been watching. Caleb, he's brighter. That's because of you." Emily blinked, unsure if this was gratitude or warning. "I know about the offer," Margaret continued. "I've arranged a better one. Higher pay, prestigious school, far away." "You're trying to buy me out," Emily said softly. "I'm giving you an exit." Emily rose from her chair. Her voice didn't waver. "I didn't come here for hearts to break, Mrs. Cole. I came for a job, but I found something else. Your grandson. A home. And I won't walk away from that." 2 days passed. Emily waited, heart in limbo, unable to shake the weight of Margaret's offer, or the promise Ethan made before he disappeared. Every footstep in the hallway made her pulse jump. Every minute without word chipped away at her resolve. The job offer was still there, untouched in the drawer. She could sign it right now, call the school in Asheville, and walk into a future paved with security. But each time she looked at Caleb, curled beside her during story time, humming softly as she braided his hair. Her heart whispered, "Don't leave yet." Then, just before dawn, the gates creaked open. Emily stepped onto the front porch barefoot, heart pounding. Rain misted the morning air. There, standing by the garden steps in jeans and a coat too thin for the weather, was Ethan Cole. But he wasn't holding a suitcase. He was holding something wrapped in cloth. "I went to Georgia," he said softly, walking toward her. "To Willow Creek." Emily froze. "I met your grandmother," he continued, voice quiet but steady. "She told me about a man who gave up everything for love, a man who built a life brick by brick, between two very different worlds." He unwrapped the bundle. Inside were architectural drawings, hand-sketched blueprints. "I sold the mansion," he said. "I bought land halfway between here and Willow Creek. We're building a new home, one that doesn't belong to my past, but to our future." Emily's breath hitched. "There's more," Ethan added. "I started a foundation for kids like Caleb, inspired by what you taught me. It's called the Rivers Cole Center for Child Development. And I want you to run it, with me." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "But only if you'll stay," he said, stepping closer, voice breaking. "Not as the nanny, not as a guest, but as my partner, in all things." Then he did something she never imagined. He knelt. "Emily Rivers, will you build a life with me?" Behind him, a tiny voice piped up from the porch. Caleb, in his dinosaur pajamas, holding the little toy flute she gave him that first week. He blew a wobbly note and whispered, "Say yes." Emily laughed through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to everything." Months passed. The new house rose like a promise on the edge of town. Timber, glass, and light. Caleb's laughter echoed through the halls before the paint was even dry. They planted a jacaranda tree in the backyard, one just like the one outside, Ethan's old office. Under its purple blooms, the three of them sat sketching dreams in the dirt. Plans for a home, a center, a life. They didn't need society's permission. They didn't need perfection. They had each other. And it had all started the day one woman looked a billionaire in the eyes and said, "Your son doesn't need a label. He just needs love." Now, love was exactly what they lived in. Loud, imperfect, and breathtakingly real. This story wasn't just about a child, a nanny, or a father. It was about all of us. About what happens when someone dares to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. When love steps in where labels once ruled. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a moment where love changed everything? Have you ever had to choose between what's safe and what's right? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what part of this story moved you the most. And while you're there, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing our community grow from all around the world. Do you think Emily made the right decision? Would you have stayed, even without guarantees? Your perspective matters, and it just might inspire someone else reading. Don't forget to like this video if it stirred your heart, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next chapter. Tomorrow's story might be even more powerful, and you'll want to be the first to hear it. Because sometimes, the most ordinary people make the most extraordinary choices. Let's talk about it. Right here, right now, in the comments.